shows, and it gives you a breakdown. I think it's within 25 pages, and it should be in your folders to give you what they do. And at this time, I'd like to bring down our data assessment coordinator, Bailey Maurice. Did I say that right, Maurice? Maurice. Yep. She's our actual data coordinator, and I know I've been in contact with her for 2 months to see if she can help our board with some data to make some smart governing decisions. Floor is yours,
Sure.
Bailey.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hi.
How are you? So I just kind of want to give you all a brief overview of kind of what data that we're using in our district to inform our instructional decisions and how it's impacting student achievement. So I think you guys all have a copy of some data samples that I'll kind of go through. So that way when it comes time for us to make curriculum decisions or other type of purchases or whatever it might be, you know that there is data at your disposal to help us make some of those decisions to move forward. So the first page in the report is it's an Excel document. And so what I've done is I'm literally tracking every single student within our district. So this is just a sample. It is real data. I've just removed all of the scholars' names. But what this document does for us is it shows us students' performance levels on the state assessments last year, and we're comparing it to their predicted performance based off of internal assessments that we are doing, which is the MAP assessment, the measure of academic progress. So it enables us to gauge whether or not our students are maintaining their place in line, which directly affects our value added score on our state report card, and it kind of gives us a touch base if students are making faster gains or if they are falling behind. So if you look at this report, you'll also see that there's a column labeled OST proficient probability. So what the state does is based off of how students are performing across the state, they are kind of dumped into a bracket, and they make predictions on predictability as far as proficiency. So that column alone also helps us to determine whether or not they are still on track. So these reports were given to our principals. It's broken down by teachers, by subject area. It's broken down by the types of services that they're receiving, whether or not they are a student who is on an IEP, if they're receiving title interventions, what intervention programs are they using. It's just kind of a holistic report, so that way we can break it down by teacher, by program, and of course by predictability. So this next page, the one that has the circle on it, this is a snapshot of our Illuminate data. So this was a program that was purchased by the board. This year is our first year of implementation with it. So we are using it for our short cycle assessments as well as our benchmark assessments. And our teachers are also using it to create classwork assignments, exit tickets, and it also serves as a data warehouse. So this is an example of one of our 4th grade short cycle assessments that was given a few weeks ago. So when teachers first log on to click on the assignment, again, it gives them that bird's eye view of how are my students performing across all of the different proficiency bands. And these also correlate directly with the OST proficiency band. So again, it's giving us that gauge on how our students are doing compared to their past test, current, and what they're predicted to be. This is also part of the Illuminate data that we get. So along with the bird's eye view of the performance levels, we can actually hone in on all the specific questions. So on this chart, you can see that if I was a teacher looking at this, I would see that question 8 was a great question for my students. There was 94.4% of them that mastered that question. So I can look at that question and think about what instructional implications contributed to that success, whereas like question 7, we're only at a 43.3% mastery. So I can go back and think about what I might need to do in order to help those students master that concept. And actually, this report is actually interactive, so the teachers can click on the blue numbers on the left-hand side, and it'll show the question, but then it'll also show the students who mastered it and the students that didn't master it. So that enables them to, group their students for that remediation. This is also part of an Illuminate report. So we just talked about what it looks like at the question level. So this actually looks at the standard level. So it's showing mastery by the actual content standards. And what's blacked out are actually teachers' names. So it allows us as administration to say, okay, we have got one teacher who has 80% mastery on this and one that has 65. What kind of support might need to be given to that other teacher to help her or him improve instructional strategies and practices within that specific domain. And then this kind of gives you a snapshot of the kind of data that we can look at the student level. So I've dumped in all of our state assessments into Illuminate, as well as our internal assessments, so MAP, iReady, and then any assessments that they've actually taken inside of Illuminate. So if I, am a counselor, or if I am a school psychologist, if I've got kids who are going through the WIS process and I'm a building administrator and I just want to click on that student and figure out, well, how is this student performing? I can pull this one report and see everything in one page. So that's just a kind of a brief snapshot of how we're collecting data. Obviously, there's 1,000 different ways that we can look at it, but we are tracking just about everything that we can possibly think of. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Board, is there any questions for Bailey?
I do have a couple of questions, please.
Sure.
So on the first Illuminate data page where you've got the pie chart,
Yeah.
what are the data points? We have the colors, but we don't have a legend that corresponds with it to say what's what.
Yep, so the dark green is exceeding expectations. The light green is like proficient. Trying to think, we've got basic, limited, and then like below limited. I don't remember the exact ones. Proficient, I'm trying to think, hold on. I should have included that legend in there for you. It is based off of the OST, so then it would be advanced, accelerated, proficient, basic, and limited. So those would be the 5 categories.
So the red.
Limited?
So the red would be limited. Yellow would, orange would be basic, and then proficient, advanced, and accelerated.
I'm sorry, say that one more time. Orange.
Sorry. Basic, proficient.
Dark
What
green.
am I starting with? Base.
So the red is limited.
Okay.
The orange would be basic. The yellow is proficient. The light green would be accelerated, and then the dark green would be advanced.
So we receive these documents. This is how we determine intervention groups. This is how we determine what administrator went into what classroom based on our data. So currently, Ms. Lozar is working with a teacher. We have other people that's going to work with teachers based on what the data tells us. So we sure up people. We see their math scores are low. We send a math expert in to support the instruction. If we see the reading is low, we send someone in to help the teacher with instruction and reading. In a general sense, if we wasn't against the clock with the state, this is part of your PD for your teachers and to try to improve the PD for your teachers. And that's what we're doing. We're PDing at the same time, but trying to help the students directly because we need the students to perform at a high level. So if you go to Eastwood now, we have parents in classrooms, we got teachers in classrooms, we got special ed teachers in classrooms, so that each teachers work, so that there's differentiated groups based on what you just saw. Our gifted teacher is working with our kids that's proficient and accelerated. So she'll be working with them to push them to the next level. But we are building a ship and flying it at the same time. And the reason, the standards change 3 times in 3 years. We adjusted to the new standards, the new way of instructing. And, I mean, basically now when you're instructing students, you got to start with the end first. You got to know exactly, you start with the assessment. So it's just like if we all are taking a test for our positions, our jobs, you start with the test first, and then you work backwards from the test. Where when I was taught how to teach, the assessment was the last thing you worked on. You started with the instruction, and then you made the assessment as you taught based upon what your kids knew. So, but now, the kids all got to meet the finish line at the same time. So you have to change the way people think about teaching and educating. And it starts with the assessment. You have to know exactly what skills the kids need to know. And then you have to prepare your lessons to prepare them to pass the assessment, because they have to know certain skills in order to pass it. Where in the past, all of us was in school, no one started with an assessment. They started with the information. And then they gave the information and tailored the assessment to what they provided you. Where at this time, we can't do that because the information is standard, and the kids have to know a certain amount of information by a certain time. I hope I'm explaining it correctly. So it's a whole different mentality of teaching, because people are used to getting a book or a textbook or something, and then they go through the textbook. And that textbook might not be what the kids are being assessed on. So they might be versed on whatever the textbook is, but it's not what the kids are being tested on. And also, you got to add that they change the way people are tested. All of us was tested on paper. Now kids are tested online. Kids have to know how to drag. They have to learn how to paste. They have to know how to do drop-down menus. And that was not in everybody's curriculum in 2014 or 15. It wasn't. So all kids did not know how to do it coming in, especially our kids if you're not doing it at home. So again, we had to hire a technology teacher to start that at John Dewey in Westwood. But again, we catching up. We are catching up with things as times changed. No fault of nobody's. We didn't make the full adjustment. We make an adjustment as we go forward. So I want everybody to be clear that this data is driving decision making. It's driving interventions. It's driving where we allocate resources. Because if we see a weakness, we can't afford to have a weakness. If a teacher is not strong in a certain subject, then we have to support the teacher and provide intervention for the students. Our first goal is to provide it for the students, and then we come back to the teacher. And that's a lot of this summer. We had our DLT last week, and we know that math instruction is an issue across the district, starting in John Dewey. Some people teach math better than other people teach math. But what has occurred is that, you know, you got a whole bunch of people who are elementary teachers who they teaching everything, and they not, so we have to assign people to their strength. You teach math good, then you teach the math. If you teach reading good, you teach the reading. And those are some hard conversations, because you got a lot of people who've been teaching a long time who believe in their ability, but the data they say they don't teach math well. So that's when our principals had to have those conversations, and we're sending somebody in to be support, and that's what's happening at this time. So a lot of changes, a lot of uncomfortability, because we have real-time data. The quarterly assessments are done quarterly. We're doing biweekly assessments, and we're not just putting it in a notebook and not doing anything with it, but it's actionable. And we take action as soon as we get the data. So from that, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, so if we have, short cycle assessments that last for a week and it closes on Friday, our principals and our teachers have that data on Monday. So there's not a lag. It's not, they take the assessment and they get the data, a month later, because data's not good if you don't use it. We've been working, the curriculum department has been working with our principals to help them understand the data and disaggregate the data, as well as the teachers. So we're going into their teacher-based team meetings, we're going into their data meetings, and we're talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly, just making sure that our students are making the gains that they deserve.
And I want to say our students are very intelligent and smart. They can learn anything. It's just us giving them what they need and changing people's belief that all kids can learn, but also changing their understanding that they don't know everything, that this is a new game. It's a brand new game. The standards evolve, and you have to evolve as an educator. You cannot stay the same and do things like you did 5 years ago or 10 years ago, because the game has changed. The game is computerized now. The standards are always evolving. So That's why we have a curriculum department to stay ahead of the game so that they are aware of what's going on and able to bring back the support and professionally develop our teachers so that they're prepared to deal in this society. If in a nutshell, there's an achievement gap that already existed before there was a computer-based test. And I've been saying that, and anybody who go to any research or any conference know it's a gap. And then when you add a computer to it, there's computer literacy too. The gap expands, and that's the 15, 16 problem we got, is that when they added the computer, it expanded the gap, which put us in the hole. Then once we adjusted, we made the gains to move forward. Now we have to make monumental gains this year to continue forward. But that's a whole nother argument to talk about, but just to share that our team is using data daily to make a decision.
Can I just make a comment?
Go right ahead.
Because first, Bailey, thank you for presenting this. I think that this is something that as a board, we could have one whole meeting on.
Exactly.
So I'm gonna reserve my questions, because what I'd really like for us to do at some point is to have a meeting that's dedicated to data and
There you go.
how we use it to drive decisions.
There you go.
What do we need? How often do we need?
Exactly.
Again, thank you, and, hopefully we can set something up soon.
Board, do you have any questions for Bailey about data at all? Oh, okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right, next on our board agenda is our actual work session, which this is what we are trying to get at. And I know last year we tried and we didn't get to it. But like I said, working with Vice President Mitchell, I want to commend her on putting all this together. This board on October 21st, 2017 had a board evaluation, and we evaluated ourselves and we made goals as a board. And we listed 4 that we were trying to complete before this May 2018 school year. We're going to get into at least one of these today, and that would be our emphasis on the importance of building, maintaining accountability for ourselves as a board and ensure the emphasis throughout the Warrensville Heights City School District. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Vice President Mitchell.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
So, I know there were questions early, and thank you again, Bailey, for presenting information. The reason we asked her to present is because we thought it would be a good intro to give us the very questions that some of us ask. What is the data? How do we better understand the data so that we can be more accountable for the work that we're supposed to do as a board? Jonathan, can you bring the deck up, please? I don't know where the clicker is.
Bailey.
Clicker's still up there.
Just so I know what I'm doing. All right. We, as President Freeman said, I'm gonna ask the board to agree that we will table our second goal tonight, because these are pretty robust discussions, and I wanna make sure that we, give them the appropriate time. So we're gonna just cover our first board goal tonight, which is, number 1. And all I wanted to do was just open up by saying, we were challenged by ODE to, build goals. And we spent the time in October, as Ray said, building out those goals. And now we agreed to come together so that we can break our goals down and build the measurements and the timing that we needed to bring the goals to life. So our first goal is emphasizing the building and maintaining of accountability for ourselves as a board, and ensures emphasis throughout the district. And we all know that being accountable means taking our fair share of responsibility for student outcomes. It means not only answering for our actions, but for the results of our actions. So by doing this, we're better positioned to maintain our community's confidence in our actions and in our decisions. I wanted us to take a look at what the word accountability means. It's the quality or state of being accountable, especially an obligation or willingness to accept responsibility or to account for one's actions. We have policy 2605 the program accountability and evaluation, which speaks to the proper evaluation of the results produced from educational resources provided by the community and the government. As the governing body of this district, we as a board have the responsibility of assessing how well our goals are accomplished, and we fulfill this duty by establishing a means for the continued evaluation of results which should be systematic and specific. So what we're going to do tonight, on each of our stations, I placed a Post-it note, pad, and a pen. And at the end of the session, I'm going to ask that y'all hand them back, because we'll use these for future sessions. But what I want us to do is to take the next 3 minutes and think through what accountability means to each of us individually as a board member, collectively as a board member, and what does it mean to you personally? So if we're accountable as a collective unit, what does that look like? If we're accountable individually as a board member, 1 of 5, what does that look like? And from our own personal perspective, when we're managing our lives, what does accountability mean? So my phone is somewhere. I'm literally gonna set the time clock. I will ask that as you guys, once you're done with your, it could be a short sentence, it could be a blurb. Up on the whiteboard here, we've got 3 columns. So if you'll stick your Post-it note up under the applicable column, and then we'll have our discussion about what we do after that. So we will start. Yeah.
The black pen.
Yeah, I gave each of you black pens because it's easier to read them. Are y'all starting already?
Yeah.
Okay.
You only gave us 3 minutes.
I'm sorry. Okay, there it goes.
What was the third one again?
Collectively, personally, individually, and write as many thoughts that come to your mind as you need to.
Oh, is that what you're doing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, individually, because then what will happen when we're done, we'll come back and group them, and we'll, in the buckets. So that's why you got a whole pack of stickies. Just roll with us, roll with us. Okay?
Now, you said we're doing all 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if this time, if we need a little more time, we'll take it. We got about 56 seconds.
No names on this thing.
No names. So as you're done, you guys can start moving over to the board and plugging your Post-it notes under the appropriate category.
How everybody
right.
coming?
We good?
That was good.
Good. So now, somebody's phone is ringing. Now I want us to think through, Mimi, you were trying to go back to the pre-work. I want us to think through what we did a couple of weeks, our last meeting, we did our pre-work assignment where we had the questions that we took a look at. We all sat, we all responded. I'm sure if you were like me, when you responded to some of those questions, you know, you probably thought, this is difficult, we're not doing this, we've been not doing things the right way. No comments from the peanut gallery. But, you know, in all seriousness, I had negative feelings about what we may not have been always doing the right way. And sometimes it's not that we were doing it wrong, it's just that we were following what's always been done in the past, and not that that's wrong, not that it's an indictment against previous boards, but it's time for us to think of new and innovative ways to do things, because to Mr. Jolly's point, the way academic standards are done today is not the way it was done 5 years ago, 35 years ago. So I want us to take time, and if we can keep each board member's comments to 2 minutes, I'm gonna put you guys on a timer, to kind of summarize what your thoughts were about some of these questions. I don't want you to go through and read your answers for each one, but we've all had time to take a look at this and think through it. In a summary, what are you coming to from a conclusion about the questions that we should ask ourselves as school board members?
Get your stuff together.
Okay? You know what?
So don't pick everything you said.
No.
Okay, I have a question before we start.
Ma'am.
Is Dr. Rock and Mr. Jolly part of the board goals? Because they have their own goals, and so I'm getting confused here,
So-
because they have their own set of
They're
goals.
still part of
We
our
have,
board.
we have a set of goals. They're part of the board team, just not the board.
Right.
So I'm a little confused.
So, they are part of our board team, and as you remember, when Steve Farnsworth met with us, he said that he said that they should be participating in these conversations with us. Because as a board team, now, will they weigh in on our final decisions? No, but they're part of the board, so they get to be a part of the discussion. And we did ask, if they wanted to participate with us this first time, and they said they would like to, because they do feel that they are a part of our team. Y'all gotta behave down here. So,
Are we on clock?
we will be on the clock. Are you guys ready to summarize what your thoughts were, your feelings about what you answered the first time?
I'm
And
ready.
I'm gonna be taking notes, because if keywords chime up, I'm gonna plug them up here based on what is being said.
No, we'll let Mimi start.
Oh, maybe you want
That's
to start?
I'll go first.
Okay, hold on. Wait.
So you want me to summarize
Just
it?
summarize.
What I feel about the accountability questions that were asked here. So for me, I saw that there were some things that we could do better. I saw where there were things that we did in the past, stopped doing it, for whatever reason. I guess that's about it for me, you know, I mean, I was kind of surprised that, you know, as I was answering some of the questions, it's like, oh, we're really not doing a very good job of that. And quite honestly, I think that the majority of the questions, if I'm being really honest, I think that we were lacking in many, almost all of the areas that were there, as a board. And I think it goes back to knowing, which is one of the things I said up there, knowing what our role is as a school board member, knowing that the what, the where, the when, the how often, and, you know, and I have to look at myself too, to make sure that at all times that I'm asking the right questions and ensuring accountability, not just, you know, and assuring accountability for my own actions too. So I'll stop there.
No, that's fine. We did it in 27 seconds.
So I have a question for
Yes,
you
ma'am.
then. No, for this is for
Go.
Mimi. I have a question for Mimi. What do you feel that we are lacking is, what stood out?
Okay, hold tight. We're gonna finish, we're gonna work
Each
through this
individual.
exercise, and we're gonna get to that next. So just
Okay.
roll with me. Here, hold that thought. Michelle, would you like to go next?
No.
Who's gonna go next?
I'll go next.
Thank you, ma'am. Timer started.
When I looked at accountability, I looked at trust. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we as a board has to work on, is trusting. Trusting that the superintendent's gonna do his job to the best of his ability. Look at the treasurer, make sure he's doing his job at the best of his ability. I just feel that I don't wanna go back to the past. I just wanna move forward. And in order for us to move forward, we have to look at what we are not doing. Not what one person is not doing, but what we are not doing as a group. Because you have other people looking at us. And sometimes there's a lack of respect. And when you think about accountability, I'm gonna use Michelle for an example. Can I use you? I respect her opinion. I don't necessarily have to agree with her, but I'm going to respect her opinion. And when I look at accountability, it's, part of it is just being able to work together as a group and do the teamwork, because that's what we are, a team. I'm finished.
Sure.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
you next?
I don't have a problem with it. Okay,
Who's going next?
so,
Oh, hold on. Ready?
so, I would say collectively, we lack, and we're talking about what we lack in, correct? So if I say we lack something, we lack follow-up and follow-through. We have a huge problem that we start something, we do it for one meeting, and then we don't go back to it anymore. And an example of that was, we have so much unfinished business. If you go through your minutes, we'd be waiting for answers for a follow-up the next meeting. We don't do it. Ms. Mitchell, you have started a little journal of the unfinished business that we just kind of just threw to the wayside. As a board, I don't think that a lot of the trainings that are attended are brought back for us to say, hey, that's something that could be good for our district. We need to try that, or we need to look further into that. And not so much of a program, but as a board, as an individual, there's workshops that we've all attended that talk about boardmanship, how to be a better board member, how to know what your role is, your job is. Because there are board members that work all outside of the scope of the thing, and I look at the past practices. Unfortunately, in 2012 is when that particular board started, not saying anybody in particular, it was that it became a whole different dynamics of bad practices. And unfortunately, it just kind of spilled on every year and every year and every year. And so in order to get out of the bad practices, that needs to change. That's just me. And that's really it. I mean, those, to me, those are our two biggest things. I think that, yeah. Thank you. I forgot to-
Okay, I hit stop.
Come on, Ray.
Accountability for me, as a board member, I think each of us individually should be accountable for our actions and us representing this district. One thing I know that we don't do, and I know when I talked to Mimi, and I really dug into this, is that I like to see more achievement for individual scholars and our educators. I don't think, as a board member in now 2.5 years, that we do enough to reward them with the small victories. And those small victories turn into greater victories. But I would like to see, as a board, if we could look at how can we recognize those scholars. I mean, we do it for our honor roll, and we do it for those, but what about just the struggling scholar that's only making a 2.2 and was at a 1 point whatever? We need to, reward them and give them encouragement as a board to let them know that, hey, you started at 1 point whatever you did, and you did so well. We just got to find those diamonds in the rough and actually give them their rewards. As far as an individual board member, I think what each and every one of you guys are doing is putting this district in a light that it had never been before. And you can look at other boards and previous practices, but there's never been a board in Warrensville Heights City School District that has so much that they can do on a national, state level, and that weighs good if you do it for the right reason. So I know all of us, we care about these children, but we have to do something individually and sacrifice something of our own to make this district great. And that's what I see. I just think we have to bite the bullet. There's a lot of things I don't like about none of y'all, but I'll never let y'all know it.
We just did.
No, I mean, I don't though, because it's for the greater good of what we do. So that's what I'm looking at, trying to better. No, I mean, I really do. I mean, if I don't like you, I'll tell you. Some of y'all by yourself, but I know that we can do better as a board, like Michelle said. A lot of things we don't do right, but this is the new wave of boardmanship. So we can't be in the 2012 or the years that we were last in the state. Yeah, it still burns sometimes. And people are like, wasn't your district last? We hope to not be last before. I'm sorry, I went over my time. Thank you.
That's
Because
okay.
y'all get me on my soapbox.
That's okay. You can go over your time.
You can answer mine. I'm not gonna be that long, because you guys said a lot of mine. Got any more?
Mm.
Mine isn't gonna be that long, because you guys touched on a lot of the things that I had written down myself. There's a couple of things, though, that I did want to bring out. We always ask about data, but I think today's presentation for me
Right, that
was
on
a
my-
good presentation,
Been on
but
my
it
mind.
also showed me that I can't make decisions off of data that I don't understand. And if Mr. Jolly and his team are able to come back, because I had written the same thing down, I need a lesson in the data. Because I know we were challenged by ODE to use data for
Correct.
policy and
And
budgetary
governing.
decisions. I can't make decisions based on what was shared tonight. And there's no indictment about what was shared. I just don't know how to synthesize it. So that was the one thing that you guys didn't mention. And I think I already put up there, better understanding data. I'm gonna put it back up there. So what I'm gonna do now is, Michelle, you were starting to go where we're gonna go for the next one. Because this is where I want us to take, and give me a second to finish putting this up. In fact, if somebody will help me put it up. Because I was trying to capture, don't talk about my handwriting. We can put it up under the right categories.
You got the categories written down?
Up here,
No,
these three.
on here.
No,
You gonna tell me where to
we,
put it?
I think we can pretty much figure it out. Here goes some, like this one. I mean, better understand data. That's a collective and it's an individual thing. So I'm gonna stick that in the middle. Are y'all, you okay if I do it?
No, go
Okay.
ahead. You do it quicker. You
So,
know the-
Ms. Barber, I think you said trust is needed. That's individual, but it's collective.
Collective.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. We're lacking in many areas. Our knowledge as a board member is lacking in many areas. Michelle, I think that was you, individual or collective?
Both.
Then I'll stick it in the middle. And it's okay to say both, because I agree with you. Now, I don't remember who said this one, but this is so critical to me.
I did.
If we don't
What did you
ask
say?
the right questions.
I said that too.
Okay, so, if we don't ask the right questions of Mr. Jolly and Dr. Brock, we're not gonna get what we need to make decisions. And some of the questions that we ask, I'll put this in the middle, don't make any sense, to be quite honest. For what they need to decision on, we have to be a little smarter in how we ask and what we ask. Opportunity for improvement?
Individual.
Okay.
I think it's collective.
I think it is too, but it's okay.
You can put it in the middle.
Because we're gonna keep moving this board here. We can do better as a board, I'm gonna put that collective. Sacrifice.
That's
I'm gonna put
mine.
that individual. Putting our board in a good light, I'm gonna put this in the middle, because there's several of us that work. Accountability, I'm gonna put this in the middle, and just bear with me, because all this stuff is gonna start moving together for a little bit. Past practices, we don't need to adhere to them anymore. I think that's,
Barbara.
it's a problem. We're gonna put over here the individual for now. The need to move forward, are we in agreement it can go in a collective?
Yes.
Total self-reflection, I'm gonna put it under personal, because it's gonna impact us individually, but we have to do it first. Lack of respect, this is a personal thing, but it's also individual, so it can go in one, but we'll put over here. Then it's okay to disagree, I think you said this, Ms. Barbara. It's okay to agree to disagree, but you have to be respectful of the other's opinion. Individual, or you want that collective?
I want that collective.
It's me. Able to work as a team, collective. Reward for our scholars, I think that's collective, and I had that one too. Lack of follow-up, follow-through, collective, you want it collective?
Yeah.
Oh, that's that, and I'm sorry, this is part two, for, unfinished business. Personal development doesn't come back and it's not applied, I'm putting under individual. Be a better member, I'm gonna put that under individual. And then 2012 is where we started seeing the breakdown in,
Collective.
yeah, so I'm going. This 2012 is where we begin to see the breakdown in our ability to function as a strong board. Not us, but the board in its entirety.
The board, the concept.
The concept of the board in its entirety, not this board,
Right.
but the board. So if we take a look at all of this, we've got looking in the mirror at one step as self, accountability, responsibility, obligation, pride and dedication, personal, respectful, opinion, and, okay to disagree. We got that over here. Doing what's right and not what's asked. Respect each other's comments, that's a good one. Legacy, what will I leave behind for the future, that's a good
I
one.
like that.
Total self-reflection, lack of respect, smart decisions. One voice, I'm only reading the ones that that were up there reading. One voice, accountable to others, teachers, students, community, accountability. Can't read this one, it's not my writing. Work, I think work with each other respectfully, responsibility, data collection, holding people we employ accountable, collective actions reflect district and community, research, unified decisions, trust is needed. Then over here, we have accountability, individual role as a board member, understanding my role, to be responsible for yourself, do what I say. I don't know what that means. Knowing board
what I
member's
say.
role.
I did not write that.
No, that's what Michelle's handwriting. Being responsible for action. Individual actions reflect the whole, accountability, opportunity for improvement, sacrifice, accountable. I think we've heard some similar strains. We got a lot of accountability,
And that's what this was about, right? Was accountability?
Yeah.
That was goal number one. Accountability.
So if now somebody can help me, I want to synthesize this down and get this into maybe 3 or 4 buckets, so that we can see, like, bucket like with like,
Strong.
you know what I mean? So we got board member stuff here.
Tell me how you want it bucketized.
Buckets and ties. Able to work as a team. Knowledge of board, what your role is on the board. I don't know what this do what I say means. I'm not trying trying to put.
That wasn't me.
I know
That was
it
probably
wasn't.
Ray.
It wasn't me.
Not raise hand right.
Y'all ain't gonna do what I say anyway.
For yourself. Do what I say.
Okay.
That when you Mimi.
That was not me.
That's not me. We gonna leave it.
wasn't me.
That's not my right.
It's not even important.
No, it really is not.
It really does not want to admit.
It really is not, so,
Do what I say.
Okay.
uh-uh.
There was some other ones, so like this.
Did I
was
write that?
Board role, board, anything that's about the board role member here. I'll stick this here.
You really should put up there, stay in your lane.
That's up there though, it's just worded
It's
differently.
worded different.
It's worded
Okay.
differently, it's up there.
I want you to put it up there.
I think everything under personal is just that, personal.
I know, but if, can we start like obligation, responsibility?
Tell me what you want.
Some of it is just repeating.
Accountability,
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree.
A lot of that is just
responsibility.
I totally agree.
Respect, that would be another category. Lack of respect could go there.
That's the same.
So looking at self,
That's more like communication and collaboration, right?
it comes with accountability as well, if you think about it. Because if, I'm gonna call you out,
Go ahead,
but it's not a bad way.
that's okay, I don't
Michelle,
mind.
you tell us quite a bit that we're not doing things the right way. And you're holding us accountable to do things the right way. But we'll talk about how it comes off in the next time. But right now, you're telling us you guys are not doing things the right way. So that it's not always done in the most respectful way, but it's done and we hear you and we try to take heed to what you're saying and do better the next time. I know you don't feel that we do, but that to me is where the lack of respect comes in a little bit here. Well, I mean, is everybody in agreement?
That would be on both ends, but I agree with you.
Okay, all right. So, for the second time tonight, I don't wanna keep belaboring this, but I think we get the point. We recognize as a board, we have a lot of work to do. I think it's a lot of good things that are up here. It's a lot of things we need to work on, opportunity for improvement came through. There's no trust. There's no trust. We've talked
No.
about it. We know there's no trust. So what do we now do so that we can work as one collective unit, unified in our thinking and our decisioning, and I don't mean to have my back to the meeting, I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Unified in our thinking and our decisioning so that we can become what we're supposed to be with that goal. Emphasizing the importance of building and maintaining an accountability for ourselves as a board and to ensure its emphasis throughout the district.
So
What are things that we
so-
can do,
So as a board,
Measurements.
we have to hold ourselves accountable.
right?
We have to hold each other of us, and when I say each other of us, I mean the five of us, because we can't hold the superintendent and treasurer accountable if we're not holding ourselves accountable.
Right.
Which in times, they're not gonna hold their staff accountable because everybody just running amok. So I think that,
Here we go.
I'm so sorry. Every time I hear that word, I think of a crazy movie.
Shenanigans?
but you guys know what I'm saying.
Okay, but let's focus on
I
us.
don't.
You don't know what I'm saying?
Not all of
Let's
it.
focus on us. This is
So
about us.
that's what I'm
today.
saying, us. We have to hold ourselves accountable. And I think the way we start, we have to trust and respect one another, but that piece, like I told you the other day, that's gonna take some time for us to do, but we have to be committed to do it at each and every meeting.
Correct.
No matter how much we wanna say something, we have to remember that the end goal is the kids.
Correct.
So we have to make sure that our decisions and our comments are kid-driven. And so I think the way we as a board hold ourselves accountable is researching. We need to be able to know what we're voting on, why we're voting on it. So when it's time to vote on it, we know that what the decision that we're making is in the best interest of the kids. So that way, every year, we don't have to keep pulling out something new because whatever it was didn't work. And that's why I am always big on data, because otherwise we're doing insanity. But that's me.
So I'm gonna push back and ask you a question.
Mhm.
Did you understand the information that Bailey presented today?
Yeah, I did.
You understood it without any of the additional information supplied by Mr. Jolly and Bailey.
So let me tell you, I understood it. The only problem that I had with it, was that the data that when the kids are tested in August, and I've just been told by staff, and this is why I didn't mention it, is that the kids are just giving any kind of answer. So quite naturally, when the first set of scores come out, it's gonna be low, but by the time they learn and grow and whatever, and they take these same assessments again, it's gonna be higher. So quite naturally, it's gonna show growth. That piece I understood. Yes, I understood her data. I just read a lot. I'm glad that we have it to be able to see exactly where we're going, and we're going in the right direction. However, I would like to see what they're actually doing to get that data, what type of instruction that they're doing, what type of extra that they're doing, how are they teaching, educating the staff member, educating the kids to get to where they need to be. Because that's a lot of small groups, because everybody's not on the same level. And we have to ensure that every child is being taught. And I can say from personal experience, when my youngest was here in this district, they did not educate her because she was above everyone else. So they just felt like, well, we'll just sit her to the side, and when we need her, can you show so-and-so how to do this? That did her a disservice. So we have to make sure that those kids that are accelerated, advanced, or whatever, that they're getting the same opportunities as everybody else. Okay, so I'm
And
done.
most of those
I didn't set
educators
the-
are gone.
I didn't set
That's
the
okay,
timer.
okay, but I'm done.
It's because I know we're gonna try to bring this in.
Yeah.
So if I heard you correctly, there's a couple of things I heard. We need to, and we've talked about it, set a cadence for the data to be presented.
Mhm.
Mimi, I heard you give another opportunity for goal, have another session
Yes.
where we have them come in, and it's one thing to read it and know what they're talking about, but it's another thing to read it, know what they're talking about, and know what to pull from it to make a decision, a smart decision. So can we agree as a board that one of our measurements for accountability will be to have Bailey come back in, or whomever Mr. Jolly decides, and educate us, fully educate us on the data that's being used by the district,
Yes.
and determine not only how to make decisions, but how to reward, because I had the same thing you had,
Yes.
how to reward those teachers that are bringing the kids up, how to reward those scholars that are not your typical straight A and B students.
Yes.
When they've got an accomplishment, how do we reward them?
Oh, can I make a comment to that?
Well,
Just one quick comment?
Yeah.
Okay, so one quick comment. In 2010 and 2011, I know you don't like going back to the past. However, in 2010 and 2011, and this is something we can think about, not only did we acknowledge, to Ray's point, the high end, but the low end, and we did it in a board meeting.
Yeah.
So we did it in a board meeting. We asked the teachers to give us those kids that were low, that tried really hard, but just never got that certificate or award or whatever. We invited their parents, and so they came, and we actually gave them a certificate, which made them, as a student, feel really good to know that a board is actually looking at me and noticing me and appreciating me. So I'm done.
So it's interesting that you did that. I wrote the same thing down. Build a program giving board members an opportunity to reach out to families of students who have achieved or exceeded academically in a predetermined period. Could be as simple as a letter of commendation from the school board signed by all of us, or a program where we bring them into the board building to celebrate them. But give them all an opportunity to say, I did this. I think we should do it for the teachers as well. We right now, the recognition is a peer, isn't that a peer-based recognition? It's not.
It's peer-based. They recommend each
So
other.
is that what we're doing now, is, or?
We need to get down to building out our measurements. So we said we would need to come to a point where we say, we're gonna do A, B, C, and D by these dates to better prepare us and help us deliver on these goals.
So that's the part that we're at now?
That's where we are now.
I have a comment.
So-
See, I just answered the questions, and I didn't necessarily write
Went to the
down
measurables.
my thoughts about
Nobody
how we
was,
can
nobody was
improve
asked
or-
to. This is what we were hoping, just like Michelle took the information we threw up here. The only reason I have something written down is in case everybody went blank and looked at me like I was cockeyed. So because when that happens, I have something down just to get the conversation
That's good.
started. But Michelle just took what we had up here to begin thinking through your ideas, correct? Yeah, so nobody knew, I just listened to what she said and came up with a potential measurement. Is
Ms.
that okay?
Mewman? I'm sorry.
You know, the
No,
only,
no, no, is it?
It is fine. I'm fine. Let's just, we'll
Miss-
keep going and I will get in where I
That's
fit in.
fine. Ms. Mewman?
I am fine.
the only problem that I actually have with that, and I'm looking at, rewards for students,
Mhm.
and my thing is state, that's why I say sometimes, you know, you have to know your role. And sometimes I don't think we actually do. To me, that's Mr. Jolly's role, to bring in,
I'm gonna do a timeout. Is this what you're getting to? Is it going to help us build out something for us to do to help us meet this goal?
right, I want you to look at what you're saying. You act though, as though we as a board should, award the student. That's not our role. I'm just saying, that's not. So we need to look at that. Trust Mr. Jolly's judgment that he is going to do the right thing for all of our scholars, whether they are honor roll student or those students that are just an average student. And I believe he does that already, to be honest with you. I really do.
But is that on behalf of the board, or?
That's the for the district.
Yeah, that's on behalf of the district. What we're trying to get to, Ms. Barber, is like, one of the things is I wrote down from what we've talked about so far, building something to commend students and teachers for achievements, high and low performers. Another thing that we could do, Mimi said it earlier, taking a work session to learn, better understand the data and how to use it.
I don't have a problem with that part.
But this is what we're trying to get to now. We're trying to get to what are we going to do as a board to help us achieve this goal? So these are two things right now. And I don't know that we want to put too much on our plate because we've got 4 more goals to work through.
Right.
So can I just add something to what you said about
we have 3 more goals.
recognizing and rewarding students? And maybe this will kind of help you just a little bit, Barbara, because I'm kind of with you. I get what you're saying when you say this is Mr. Jolly's role. When I first came on the board, we did something like that with Superintendent Zoldesi. We, you know, they made decisions on which students would be acknowledged, which staff members would be acknowledged. We brought them in, we gave them certificates, we gave them gift certificates, gift cards. But the gift cards, we went out for donations, and that was something that the board collectively all played a hand in. So my point is, even though as far as the student achievement, that's Mr. Jolly's job, you can still incorporate this to be some type of community outreach, get your parents involved, and get the community involved in this. Does that make sense?
Nope, because I'm gonna bring you back down. How are we, this is a board thing.
Right.
That's
Sorry about
community.
this.
So what are we doing? How are we going to, what are we going to do to recognize the students and the teachers?
So in other words, as a,
It's
I
what
get it.
we do
I
as
get
a
it.
board.
So, what we've done in the past is bring them into which is what, right, so I'm agreeing with Michelle, we've done it before, she did it, we did it, we've all done it. Barbara is saying, so we're bringing them in, but this is Mr. Jolly's job to make sure that the students are effectively
Absolutely.
awarded. So what I'm hearing though is we're saying we might want to incorporate something like that back into our board meetings.
That's what I'm hearing people are saying. So
So-
those are two of the
So
things
your
that I.
recommendation actually is coming from Mr. Jolly?
Mr.
It's
Jolly,
always coming from
Mr.
Okay.
Jolly and his team, they have to be the ones, because we don't know.
I don't have a problem with that.
But I do think that we could establish the criteria for what we would like to see, or work with Mr. Jolly to establish the criteria for what we would like to see, since it is a board meeting.
So I'm gonna push back on that.
Okay.
I'm not an academic. I can't say these students are doing, if I have a kid that has a D, I'm gonna use my kid. My kid had a D in one class until his butt got fired because he had to get that grade up to run track. He knew what he had to do at home. The teachers here got him where he needed to be. If you're gonna run track, you gotta bring this up. D went to a B. Kids like that are that place all the time, I can't make those decisions to say, you have to do this, and this. I leave that to Mr. Jolly and his team. That's not my lane.
I get that, but what I'm saying is just like you said, your son was an athlete. We get to know an athlete, in terms of establishing criteria, an athlete with a high GPA. We want to be able to ensure that we're acknowledging an elementary school student. What do we want to see from an elementary school student? Because you know what ends up happening? They bring the same.
Yep, the
students,
same kids all the time.
and you see the same staff members being presented. So at the very least, what I would like to see is if a recommendation is going to be made for the board, then that recommendation come to the board before you even say anything to the employee or to the student. Share with the board what the criteria is, why you selected this person, and let us agree or,
But I think,
disagree.
and I think
prior
if
to
this
the
is
meeting.
something that if we're going to do, then we need to look at the low-end students
Yeah,
as
I
well
did
as
high
the
as
middle,
well.
the middle students,
Yeah.
as well as the high, because that's always been one of my things, is that we always look at the ones that are doing exceptionally well, and those are the ones that we see at every board meeting, and because little Johnny missed it by 2 points, he'll never be recognized.
And so, and that's why I'm saying different criteria. I don't like saying the
Yeah,
low
we need to
end
wrap this
being
up.
most improved. There's gotta be different reasons why we wanna bring students to the table. It doesn't always have to be academics.
No.
We could bring a student to come to a meeting just to read to us, because little Johnny has made a lot of gains, in his reading. So let Johnny come to a board meeting and read, and we reward him for that.
Okay. So it sounds like from the conversation that we've had, we're gonna have 2 deliverables. And I'm gonna say we set these up so that we're Q1 now, we're almost at the end of Q1. You wanna set some dates, and I can come back at our March session with some, recommendations for dates, so that we can say by X date, we'll work with Mr. Jolly and his team to take a work session and schedule a class to educate us. And then by another date, we'll work together during a work session to build out what that recognition program could look like for our teachers and our students, our most improved. So is that good? We've got 2 good ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I'm thinking about timeframes. I heard March. So are you saying we would do both of them in March?
Do both of which
Both,
are.
you said build out the goals, is that what the 2
These
deliverables?
are, we'd have to set dates. When are we gonna make these happen?
So I would just say,
What is the first one?
I'm gonna type it up and
Oh.
email it back.
Okay.
'Cause right now it looks crazy.
I would go sooner rather than later, only because school year's gonna be over with.
Yep.
Correct.
So if we're gonna, and if we're gonna do it, again, we gotta do it sooner rather than later. And I know we're doing work sessions. I would just ask that, I would say we could get so much more done if we came in at 7 o'clock, went through everything, and went right into doing the work session.
Well,
Yeah, we had executive
I didn't have
session.
that option tonight.
I understand that, but I'm just saying, if there's a way that we can make that happen.
That was
That's
the
been the
original
goal.
plan.
It's been the goal.
That was the original plan.
Been the goal.
We were told we had a executive session. We
Right,
didn't have
been
a
the goal.
choice.
So,
All right,
well, we're not done, are we?
she's done with her part.
Okay, so can I make a comment?
You are done?
Yeah, because I'm not gonna try to do the second goal. It's too late.
So
We'll
we
carry it
went over, we just kind of summarized everything. Just run it past me so I understand.
So basically, I asked you guys to do the pre-work and answer the questions. Those are thought starters. Those are to help us start thinking about where we are with the goals that we came up with. This information didn't come out of Tracy's head. It came out of the Purple Book key works the school boards and the big orange one from OSBA, becoming a better board member. I dug in there to get the questions to help us start thinking. But each of the sessions, at least for the next one, once you've answered your questions, we're gonna come back and summarize. So talk through not every single answer, but think through a summary of what that question, those set of questions made you think as you were answering them.
Okay, so can I ask Mimi her question now?
Mm-hmm.
The question that I had before, are we going to get to that or we're not doing that?
Oh,
Well, no, because I had started and Tracy said that we were gonna.
oh, and you know what, and we were, but we took a slightly different turn.
Okay. All right, because I just wanna know, the things that we each feel that we're lacking on, we should know what they are, so then we can continue to build and move from there instead of just saying we're lacking in it and we don't do anything with it because we don't know what it is or what each person feels that it is.
Well, I kind of touched on, you know, if I'm looking, I made that comment based on the questions. So, you know, it said, how do we ensure policy and budget decisions are research-based and data-driven? And my response was, in my opinion, we rely on the superintendent to tell us. Research comes into play when we're given ample time to review items that are brought before the board. You know, I thought about the Illuminate ad. We made the purchase for Illuminate ad. So it was great that she showed us what she can do, but now we have to take it to the next step. So we kind of went there with that. And then it talked about recognizing students, and we already touched on that, because my comment was that it was things, you know, in the past, we did things like this during board meetings. If we decide to do it again, then we have to have more of a say in who's gonna be recognized. So we kind of touched on the things that I thought we were lacking in. Consequences and interventions for students and teachers. Now, that one we didn't touch on, but I personally think that that is a superintendent's role. I don't think that we should get involved in consequences and interventions. It's nothing that speaks, that's fine, that speaks outside of what our board policy is. And then it talks about achievement measures and how our results reported. Well, that's to our State of the Schools address, board meetings, city council meetings. So I would challenge us to say, is that something that we can do better? And again, what questions do we need to ask to make sure that we're getting the right information? So I don't think we disagree on the things that we need to do better. I think we kind of touched on all of it. I did find a hard time answering these questions and saying, yeah, we're doing that great. I couldn't say that because, you know, to your point earlier, we start something and then we don't finish it, we start it and, you know, get back to it a little bit later. So it's just consistency.
Okay. I just want to make two comments, Mr. Freeman.
Go right ahead.
The first one is, I do want to congratulate Ms. Mitchell and Ms. Gator. We had our regional executive meeting, and Ms. Mitchell is going to be part of the Diversity and Equity Committee, and Ms. Gator is going to be part of the Ohio School Board's member cabinet for the Northeast region.
Congratulations.
You're welcome. See, y'all didn't think I knew that. We discussed that. Our nominating committee for each region. There's a nominating committee for each region, and that's how they decide per region. So when we had our meeting, the nominating committee went through the application, because it was something you had to apply for. And you guys happen to see Dr. Mary Rice in East Cleveland. She is on the SALT, she's on the SALT committee. So she's from our Northeast region as well. So they are looking to advance our region to get more people involved who are fairly new to the boards, who don't really get involved in a whole lot of things, just to have different ideas, different things come about. So that was our regional meeting. Hopefully, you guys can attend. We have our spring conference in March, and there'll be one in Parma and there'll be one in Warren. So either one, if you guys can attend, either one. You don't have to attend both of them. But whichever,
Just give us the dates.
okay, I'll have to give it to you and look through my phone. But at that time, I think you will receive your certificate and stuff of that as far as the committee. Last thing, we talked about, as a board, we talked about the career fair. met with Miss Smiley, after she met with Mr. Jolly, and some of you have expressed an interest in wanting to take part of it, and I did, speak to, some of you that were interested. Ms. Moomin is going to do, what was it? Yes, Ms. Moomin is going to work with the parents on resume writing. Ms. Mitchell is going to do mock interviews and, what was it?
Well, we were gonna put this on the agenda for the
Right.
26th, because we wanted to talk about
Right.
it in more detail.
Right.
Okay.
So because, when we were talking on the phone, I shared, I think we needed to take a step back and look at things a little bit differently.
So,
So if we can table that and talk about.
oh, that's
it,
fine.
yeah, on the
just-
26th.
That's fine. I'm just letting you guys know.
All right,
That's it.
we will put the 4.3 board goals communication for the next work session. We have no unfinished business that I know of until next, the 26th. No new business. Dr. Rock, any correspondence?
No, but I'd like to add one quick thing.
Go right ahead.
From my experience from a lot of board meetings that I've gone through for 13 years, stick on that board recognition section. That would be a great thing for us. You can't have a better item to where when you recognize staff or students or good things happening in the district, that item alone will steer you into concentrating on programs and the students. I've seen it work in all kinds of districts, and I've seen it work in real formal ways and informal ways.
We
I just wanted to add that.
have our kids come in and like sing the national.
Yeah, it's open for
anthem.
discussion. We're fine.
And just think about the few that we've had here and how nice those board meetings were.
It's really nice.
He's a hater.
Announcements, we do have two members that did get elected, and they will discuss that on the 26th. They will talk about their positions on those two committees. Is there any other further business? I need a motion to adjourn the meeting. Can I have a motion?
Oh, before we adjourn, one thing. We need to look at policy regarding the First Amendment, and as well as, there was another one. And the reason I say that is because at our conference that we were just at, they talked about how students are following Colin Kaepernick with the kneeling, and how some kids were being disciplined. We cannot discipline kids that decide they want to kneel. We cannot discipline staff if they decide they want to kneel, if they're doing it as a public citizen, as opposed to if they're doing it as a staff member. So we need to look at a policy on that for us so it can be adopted.
Okay. Can I have a,
Suggestion?
go right ahead.
Remember, I'm sorry.
That's all right, go right ahead. You keep going on and on, go.
Good discussion. Since member Elba suggested it, I don't know, did they maybe give you a sample of something that you?
They gave us a sample. I didn't bring it because I didn't think we were gonna discuss it, but I
Not-
can bring it on at our next meeting. The different policies that they think that, is gonna be with the changing of the guards that we need
Or
to
just
start.
send it to us in email. Can you send it to, I'd like to have it in email.
Well, it's a hard copy. I mean, I can try to get it scanned.
Yeah. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn our work session.
February 12th.
Do I have a second?
Michelle, I do like that.
Do I have a second?
I do like that.
Do I have a second?
Someone second.
I second.
Moved by Vice President Mitchell, second by Board Member Gator. Dr. Rock, would you please call the?
Mrs. Elba,
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mrs. Gator,
Brad, right, this is
Ms.
Circus.
Mitchell, Mr. Freeman.
Yes, we are adjourned. Next board meeting is February 26th. This is Circus.